Coming up next on episode 14 of the Bill Gephardt Show.
And anger breeds anger. And my guess is it's not going to get any better for a while.
America's angry divide. Haven't we been feeling that for a long time now? Well, how serious is this breach? Can it even be repaired? Provocative insights from conservative commentator Rod Decker, the dean of Utah politics, I say. And why are we so angry?
The leadership of the legislature has nothing but contempt for urban areas. It's more than disrespect. It's downright contempt.
Liberal gadfly Jim Tabakis, the dynamics of power politics on Utah's Capitol Hill, and why he says rural legislatures don't like the city folks.
I rejected it. I think it's bad public policy to be reactionary in that way and to have punitive approaches to policy. You're only sending the wrong message to our teachers.
A last-minute political maneuver puts the Salt Lake District teachers between a rock and a hard place, as they say. Why Senate Minority Whip Luz Escamilla says it's punitive politicking.
And so if they go wrong, do you just eat them?
Yeah, people ask that quite a bit, you know. I do sample a lot of them.
Plus the not-so-starving Utah artist whose favorite medium is, of all things, the Oreo cookie. Well, guess what? We sent our Daisy Blake to find out more. This podcast is brought to you by these proud sponsors of local journalism. Robert J. DeBryan Associates. When you're injured, your attorney matters. All Utah Plumbing, Heating, and Air. Let John Holland and his team keep your home safe and warm this winter season. One Wire Fiber, where Adam Sessions and his folks help businesses communicate better from the office, home office, or from the road. And by ES Solar. Save with solar power today, the clean, safe, affordable energy of the future. And by our special guest sponsor, Legacy RV Center. Well, looking at who I have on the screen with me now, it's Rod Decker, sometimes considered the dean of Utah politics, which means I think he knows all about politics all over the country, national and otherwise. We also know that from the book he has written, which is Utah Politics, The Elephant in the Room. I think it's a good read, and it's mostly historical, I think, about the evolution of Utah politics right from the very beginning. Rod, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Here's what I want you to do, if you can, among other things, is talk me off the ledge of anger. It seems like everybody's angry with everybody. The Republicans with the Republicans, some are alleged rhinos, Republicans in name only, and the Democrats are mad at the Republicans and vice versa, and on and on. And we've got a president who seems to think the election is not going very well. Meantime, except for COVID, things seem to be going okay, and I cannot figure out why everybody is so angry with everybody else. It's not like King George is taxing us and then taking all the money and we want to become our own country. There's something to be angry about. But what are we so mad about now, all of us?
Well, the answer is I don't know, but I have a theory. That's
all right.
That's all right. Okay. My theory is that after the New Deal, after World War II especially, America had a progressive consensus. The Democrats had power in Washington, and a policy of greater equality, a policy of help for the poor, of government participation in the economy and the country.
All right, progressive meaning greater taxes and bigger government.
Yeah. It was sort of I think starting maybe with Barry Goldwater, he was the first big manifestation. Republicans to Senate. It's kind of their job to be the loyal opposition, but the opposition became more fundamental rather than about details. And it has become more fundamental. The Republicans now don't agree that Washington should do more for equality, against poverty, for social and racial justice. They aren't sure Washington should do that. In fact, most of them say Washington shouldn't. That's a big part of it. Along with it, there's been a sexual revolution, a cultural revolution in America. And it's made the right angry, and it seems to me the right has a case. Abortion gay marriage, pornography, stuff like that. And the rights case, it seems to me, is this. They were disfranchised. Utah is Exhibit A. In Utah, Utah debated and argued about these issues, every one of them. Abortion, pornography, gay marriage, birth control for teenagers without telling their parents, sponsored by the government, censoring cable television. Utahns argued and made a decision democratically through their elected representatives, and then it was thrown out by federal judges. I'm sort of surprised Utahns aren't more angry than they are, because on issues that matter to them and that matter to other people, they can argue they were disfranchised. Now, what I've said has made some of your viewers mad. They're saying abortion's a woman's right.
Yeah.
You get anger on the right, and it turns sometimes it seeps over and becomes anger on the left as well. So
there's no compromise when it comes to abortion. It either is or it isn't. That's right. I mean, it's not like whether we should have the speed limit 45 or 65 and we compromise in between. No, there's no compromise.
You could compromise. You could compromise. Yes, I think you could compromise. You could say a woman could have an abortion under certain circumstances, but not under others. We say that now. You can't. It's a woman's right to choose for much of her pregnancy. But if she comes in the 8th month and says, "I've decided not to have this baby," she's probably got a problem.
But the point is that we're angry with each other. It has become, you go back to the New Deal in terms of liberalism, and I begin to wonder, in my memory, of Sarah Palin and trying to disenfranchise, if you will, the news media, calling them the lamestreats, where that came from, the lamestream news, and on and on. I mean, I was a news guy forever, and I never particularly thought that I was being biased, so I'm a defender of the news. And then it went on and on to where people were calling each other names. And I mean, there are protests now on both sides, not just one side protesting against Vietnam or something. We're angry on both sides.
Yes, we are, and both are, and anger breeds anger. And my guess is it's not going to get any better for a while. I don't know. The system we've got is hard on us. We've got to make decisions nationally. And as you say, we're doing, right now, we may have some economic difficulties, largely because of COVID. Yeah. But surely over our adult lifetimes, we've lived in a prosperous country. And there have been poor people, and there is injustice, but most of the people who are angry aren't angry because they don't have enough to eat. They've got enough to make themselves fat if they're not careful, and they've got a car and they've got a house. And most of the people who are angry, it isn't over economics. It's over what social scientists call cultural issues. Mormons call them family issues. But there's and race is we have a historic problem with race.
Yes,
and it comes back, and it's back now.
What do you think of this president who's about not to be the president, but continues to tell us, including alleged threats of martial law, that he's going to stay the president, and that this is Donald Trump I'm talking about. And he's, like I say, threatened martial law, and he wanted to seize the voting machines. And Bill Barr, the Attorney General, said, no, we don't need to do that. I'm just kind of jumping around here, but what do you think of this mess? At least I think it's a mess.
It doesn't worry me very much, because I think he's just bloviating. I don't think he said he'll leave if the Electoral College says he lost. The Electoral College says he lost. I think he'll leave. I think it's a very bad thing for him to be making these threats and so forth. But I don't think much is going to come of it.
Okay. There's a fella who I think most of us in the general public don't pay much attention to, and that would be our Utah Attorney General, Sean Reyes. I think if you ask people, they'll know who the governor is. They might know who the lieutenant governor is, generally speaking. And when you get down to the Attorney General and below, nobody knows. But now Sean Reyes' name is kind of front and center. I found him a difficult guy to interview, to catch up with, to ask questions. But then he winds up going to Arizona to fight for Trump. And
Nevada, yeah.
What's that?
Nevada. I think
Excuse me, Nevada. I'm sorry. He went to Nevada to do that. I don't know. Your thoughts?
Okay. First, let me ask you: were you ever able to interview him? I was not. He's hard to catch up to. He'd sometimes have a news conference, and you could go and ask him a question. But
well, he walked away from those. There were those when he got an award from somebody for doing something, and then rather than asking about the award, you'd ask about whatever you wanted to ask about, and he wanted to walk away because he wanted to talk about the award. So there has been that, but it's hard to nail him down about some of this other stuff in my experience.
I don't think we've had a public official, or I think as much as any public official, maybe more in my experience, he is shy of the media. Now, in fact, legal ethics say lawyers should be careful about talking to the media. And he has a point when he says, it's true I'm an elected official, but I'm also a lawyer, and I shouldn't be talking about at least some of the cases that I'm involved in. Though he, for instance, issued news releases about joining the Texas lawsuit to try against the 4 states, the outcome 4 states, and about his two suits against Google. He issued releases about that, but he has some excuse in being a lawyer, but he is the most media shy public official, or at least among the most, maybe the most, that I've ever seen in Utah.
All right.
And now you want to talk about trying to fight for Trump. First off, it's Trump's right to go to court and claim fraud.
Well, that's right, but I don't know where. It's my right to sue you for sitting there because I don't know why, but I would lose. It's my right. Yeah,
exactly right. Okay, Trump hasn't broken the law, and Reyes hasn't broken the law. It's his right to go to Nevada and sniff about if he can find anything. It's his right to join the lawsuit. Okay. Now, it seems to me that as you point out, you can do a lot of legal things that are stupid. And this seems to me to be not even his fellow Republican governor and lieutenant governor said he'd done better to stay here in Utah and mind his business. I think that it's particularly unfortunate because he's the Utah Attorney General. The criticism of him I feel most strongly about is this. He went to Nevada and he said, there is evidence of voting irregularity. He wouldn't say what it was. I think that's wrong for public officials to call elections into question without presenting evidence, without showing. I think it's public officials have, in my view, a duty to promote faith in the process, insofar as the process deserves faith. So if they're going to say, the judge was bribed, they should have evidence. And if they're going to say the attorney general was bribed, we ought to have evidence. I'm not saying that he was.
No.
Okay. And if, especially officials, if we're going to say the election was rigged, they ought to have evidence. And he hasn't presented any evidence, and he won't talk about what he meant.
No, and that's been the problem from coast to coast. He's lost 50 lawsuits. The Trump campaign, that is, lost 50 lawsuits, including at the Supreme Court, in a unanimous decision that they didn't have standing to get in there and even launched their protest. And it's all about exactly what you say, no evidence. If you're going to make an accusation, if you're going to sue somebody, you need the evidence first, then the lawsuit, right?
Yeah. Trump has a dog in the fight, and Reyes doesn't. Reyes doesn't have a dog in the Nevada fight. I don't think it's right, quite, that he doesn't have any interest there. After all, it's going to be his president and our president, and if the election was stolen in Pennsylvania, why, that's of concern to us. But I think that as a public official, he needs to be especially careful. Now, when you're a candidate like Trump, it's not clear when you're entitled to bring a lawsuit. I think Al Gore's lawsuit in 2000 was a perfectly good lawsuit.
Well, that was only 500 votes too. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, that seems to me to have been a perfectly good lawsuit. And I think that after it was over, some Democrats went on too long, claiming that the
That's right.
was stolen.
All right.
They didn't have evidence, but that's not very serious. I think there was some reason to complain in 2016 about interference from the Russians, though I think that went on way longer than it ought to have, given that there was an investigation and they weren't able to come, and the Democrats in the House got after it, and they weren't able to come up with much that I could see. So Trump has gone further than those, and in my opinion, too far. But it doesn't seem to be like this is. You say, why are we angry? I'm not angry at the president over this. I think this is kind of dumb, the way he's been dumb all along. But I don't think it's much harm.
This book has 17 chapters in it. Let's see if we can write chapter 18, or at least outline it a little bit. And I don't even know if this is the right question, but it seems to me that during COVID, the legislature said they're going to give bonuses to all the teachers in the state during this COVID problem, but not to Salt Lake because they're not going back into the classrooms, at least initially. Is that indicative of anything and where we're going? And does that help us kick off chapter 18 or not?
I think it's indicative of where we are. I don't know whether it's indicative of where we're going. First, lawmakers and teachers don't like each other. They're cordial, they speak nicely, but they don't much like each other. Lawmakers say they like teachers, but in fact, they don't like organized Utah teachers. Secondly, lawmakers are Republicans and they hate Salt Lake City. Mostly, there are a lot of people in Salt Lake City who hate the legislature. And that's less cordial than between the teachers. Here is a chance to kick both Salt Lake City and teachers, and some lawmakers did it. Now, Spencer Cox waited for a while till he said emotions had calmed down a little. Then he talked privately with Brad Wilson, Speaker of the House, who I know Speaker Wilson, and I believe he's a reasonable man. And they talked it out, and the Salt Lake teachers will get their bonus after all.
That's right. Now, what does that tell us? That's the president. What's that tell us, if anything? Maybe nothing.
Tells us that legislators will stick it to Salt Lake City if they can, stick it to teachers now and then, but that isn't the thing they want to do most, and they won't admit, probably even to themselves, that they want to stick it to Salt Lake City and to the teachers. They do it, and they clearly want to, but they say, "Oh no, we love teachers," and they even fool themselves with that sometimes.
Does Spencer Cox seem to have a kinder, gentler approach to all of this stuff? I mean, maybe even our current governor has a kind and gentle approach. I don't know. What are your thoughts? I'm trying to figure out where we're going. I'm trying to think of what you think.
I think our current governor has a kinder, gentler approach, not about like Gary Herbert, but he's a good negotiator. He's good at being friendly with people. But the legislature, it's only going to take him a little while to show him who's boss. I mean, until Olene Walker, maybe.
Okay.
Gary
all right.
Herbert, the governor won almost all fights with the legislature. Since then, largely, I think, because Democrats don't amount to anything, and the legislators are Republicans, all Republicans, and they stay there for decade after decade. They have banded together. They're a group, and now they win almost all the fights with the governor. There's been an enormous but largely unremarked power shift in Utah, away from the governor and to the legislature. And it isn't changing. And the legislature, Spencer Cox has been up there. He's been a legislator and he's been a lieutenant governor. He knows about it. and he's expecting things with the legislature. But I give him considerable credit on this one.
I do too.
He didn't go public. He didn't pick a fight. He fixed the problem.
So in this book, The Elephant in the Room, you show that we used to be a little bit more progressive in Utah than we seem to be now, maybe a little bit more aligning with more progressive ideas. We're in a conservative state now. Are we coming out of that a little bit by the electorate, or are we staying right where we are? And I know you were talking about social issues.
Okay.
Put that together for me in the next chapter.
Okay. Maybe we're coming out. I mean, we're nothing lasts forever, and Utah conservative republicanism won't last forever. But we sure looked conservative and Republican this last election.
Yes, we did.
And what I would point to as evidence, first, Utah is conservative because of Latter-day Saints. If only non-Mormons voted, Utah would be a strongly Democratic state. So it's Latter-day Saints who make us conservative. Latter-day Saints may be changing. More young Latter-day Saints are leaving the church than used to be the case. Utah has been different since the 1970s from America in two ways specifically. One's in politics, where we're among the most Republican. Two is in demographics, where we had the highest birth rate, much the highest birth rate of any state. Our birth rate has fallen. It's now below replacement level, though it's still one of the highest of the states, not always the very highest as we used to be. So demographics is changing. That may herald that the two may be linked somehow. I think that Latter-day Saints became Republicans because they over family issues that we talked about this.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
And I think that so maybe it'll change. It isn't, as we remarked, there's no reason.
Well, it doesn't have to. I'm not personally pushing for anything, and I don't think you are either. I'm just wondering, where things are going.
I think maybe there are signs of change. After 2018, I thought there were more. Ben McAdams won, but the Republicans, I mean, that's been fixed. He's not in there anymore. Voters went for marijuana and for Medicaid. And I thought, well, maybe there are signs of change, but not this time. That may have been just an accident, the 2018, about the Provo election clerk couldn't get the polling places to work. So a lot of Provo votes a lot of Provoans didn't get a chance to vote. And that may have been what accounted for me.
Say that 5 times fast, can you? Provoans. Never, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I said, say Provoans or whatever you said. It was a tongue twister, I thought.
Provoans, right. I don't know.
That's right. All right.
Residents.
The book is Utah Politics. And if you want to know where we came from, and Rod just told us where we're going, but if you want to know where we came from, it's a good, quick read, and it had a billion surprises in it for me, because I had no idea about, frankly, most of the stuff that's in here that's more than 20 or 30 years old. Rod Decker, I still think you're the dean of Utah politics, and I appreciate you giving us a little bit of your time today.
Thank you, sir.
Coming up in just a few minutes.
You're only sending the wrong message to our teachers. It's not their fault.
Luz Escamilla, minority whip in the Utah Senate. Today, she's talking about the move to strip Salt Lake teachers of their pandemic performance bonuses, plus her family's own personal bout with COVID-19. And meet the Utah artist who's found success in a most unusual medium. Our Daisy Blake has that story.
Good morning, it's John with All Utah Plumbing, Heating, and Air. Good to see everyone again, and winter is here. We're watching those temperatures drop. I know I've fired my furnace on. You probably have as well, and you know that it's time to get a professional to take a look at it. Right now, we have a $59 component and full safety inspection. Okay, so what's next? What can you do? Okay, right here, filter, good to change. Like I like the pleated ones. We've talked about that before. The pleated ones, you want to change those every month. It really protects the components to keep it clean, keeps your home cleaner, because remember, the air is just circulating in your home. So I'm going to take the door off right now. We're going to look at the components and the certain things that we check, just kind of to go over what you could expect when you call us. So here we go. So we take the door off. You can see, I like York. We use York. This is one of the ones that we put in. Okay, so we have a brush and we have our eyes that we're inspecting everything. This is a newer furnace. It's only about a year old, so not surprising it's not dirty. The dirtier it is, the more detailed things have to be. Okay, so we have the gas valve, we have pressure switch, the inducer motor, the flame sensor back in there where the fire's coming out, the burners, and then the combustion chamber. We need to check all those things, including the blower down here. Check all those things out with our meters and whatnot for your safety. And so there you go. That's what you should see a guy like myself doing. And then the cleaning, as in the brush, brushing things off, the vacuum, really finalizing it up to clean it all up. So again, that special is $59 full component and safety check. Give us a call 24 hours a day. We're there to answer the phone. We'll see you soon. Have safe and happy winter season.
Move with the rhythm. Shake it up, stop when the clock hits 13. Sing 1, 2, 3, 4. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it.
Brothers selling booze on 29th and Highland, outlaws from the old land.
And you're listening to Salt City Man by the Vitals Family Band.
That's our family.
It's a great local group, and they just dropped 5 new tracks on Spotify last week. Check them out.
In on the train tracks west on Route 6 on Spanish Fork Canyon, the point of the mountain.
The next session of the Utah State Legislature is still a couple of weeks out, but the partisan politicking is already underway. My next guest is State Senator Luz Escamilla, who is no stranger to the hijinks on Capitol Hill, and that includes the recent last-minute power play that seemed to target Salt Lake City School District teachers. Let's welcome to the podcast now Luz Escamilla. She is the Democratic Senate Minority Whip in Utah, and she's formerly ran for mayor in Salt Lake, and I think she's a well-known name around town. And welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to join you. Thanks for the invitation.
I want to talk to you right now about what is going on in Utah politics. But before, I guess in conjunction with that, I want to talk about the elephant in the room, which is the pandemic. It's the problem everywhere. Your husband suffered from COVID, did he not, a few months ago?
We all did, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I was the first one. We were case 161, I believe, and 162. And then all of our kids got it. So yeah, I mean, we've had our experience. I got it the day after the session. So I'm guessing it happened at the legislative session, which is why we made it very public, because I felt responsible to share with everyone. Because we have thousands of people, as you know, that come to the Capitol. So I start feeling sick Sunday, which is 2 days after the session ended, and so I went first. My husband and I were at the hospital together.
Oh wow! And
so
how is he? How are you? How were the symptoms? What was that?
We both had. The symptoms. What you hear, I suffer from asthma, so mine was a little bit more of a complication related to breathing and just a hard time breathing, oxygen. My husband, because at that point he was dealing with high blood pressure, so we both had different issues at that time, but we're doing well. I still have a lot of issues with coughing. I've had like the eternal coughing, I guess, and still follow with my doctor.
How about tired? Are you tired? I mean, we hear about these people who are. I don't.
Oh yeah, we haven't regained our full. I mean, it took us a good 4 months just to try to get to a normal day of hours of work. I mean, it's been for us very slow in terms of the recovery. I obviously hear from other people that are fine, mild symptoms. Our kiddos, some of them had mild symptoms. We had one that faced more difficulty, a 5-year-old. So just so you know, this happens to everyone. I mean, our little one was at the hospital too. So we've had multiple experiences. I've had losses in my family related to COVID. We've been hit by COVID, that's for sure.
I'm very worried about the death involved in COVID, but I'm probably for some reason more worried about long-term effects. And are you looking at that? You're as you go through this COVID thing at the legislature. I mean, what are we looking at here? Is there funding available? What direction are we going?
So I think one of the good things through this whole process is we've come together as a nation. Whether it has been politicized, which I think it has been, it happens in a presidential election, which is even more complicated. Yeah. But I've seen personally a lot of goodwill of bringing good public policy through this process. It's not perfect, but for example, the insurance companies, the insurance carriers have been obviously, open to be part of the solution. We are dealing with issues related to mental health, that are not only for the individuals that are suffering from COVID, but everybody else. So I'm seeing more flexibility in addressing these issues. I think there's going to be a huge cost attached to the long haulers. I mean, you're absolutely right. We don't know what's going to happen. I'm in my head, think about this every day, not only for myself, but for my little one. I mean, my 5-year-old that had, that's still dealing with some of those issues. So this is happening. I mean, I can guarantee someone that's still dealing with those long, effects that we don't even know how they're going to look like. We're going to have to make policy decisions related to this, whether that's going to be covered through insurance, right? I mean, is this going to be considered a precondition? There are those conversations, many of them at the national level, of course, but I think at the state, we also have to be addressing them.
So what are we going to do? I mean, what is the direction? Because we still have people up there on the Hill who think it's a hoax, and people who think that it's just the flu, and are rather dismissive of this whole thing. After all, the president had it, and the president got over it. Well, yeah, there were some special treatments, we understand. But I mean, is there a direction? It's so Republican, and it can't just be the Democratic side that's pushing for something, right?
Yeah, no, I have to say, you're absolutely right. It is, there are still people that don't believe it's happening or is not as severe. Look, the numbers will talk by itself. It's going to probably hit one of them pretty soon here. I mean, this is a number game at the end of the day. You look at statistics, I mean, maybe the mortality rate is only 5%, but just wait until that 5% happens at home or with someone that you love. And I think that's what's going to change people. Unfortunately, data apparently in science is not, changing people's minds and is not apparently educating on what's happening. But I think even within some of my colleagues that are in the majority side, Republicans, there are understandings that this is a very severe, we don't know a lot of information and we have to be more cautious. There are the isolated cases, I'm not gonna lie, and some of them are very public about how they feel about this. And some of them already got it and were one of the first critics of how this is not that big of a deal. But then when it happened to them, they obviously isolate, they have great healthcare. We still have great healthcare in Utah. If you're facing this, if you're in California, it's a totally different story. But I mean, the reality is, I think people would change when it hits closer to home, I guess.
You got in the middle of a controversy to maybe take a little turn in this subject with regard to something that came up at the legislature, which became a scandal, and that is the Salt Lake City School District, teachers across the state would get a bonus of $1,500, except schools where they're not teaching in classrooms. And that, of course, would target the Salt Lake City School District, which you are part of the Salt Lake City School District. But even if you weren't, is that fair? And what happened? What was that all about?
So, and it was an interesting process. So we are in Executive Appropriations Committee, which is a committee that prepares budget, right? We're the last committee to see a budget before It is finalized at the, with all both houses, the Senate and the House. So we were talking about the next budget, and remember, we have to come in with a budget. We have to balance our budget in Utah. So we are preparing for the budget, and there's this item that comes up, which is, hey, some bonuses for our teachers that are obviously in the front lines, working really hard under this pandemic to help our kiddos. And then comes an amendment, which was proposed by our speaker, Speaker Wilson, and where he has this exemption to school districts that do not offer. So it was a very broad language. It's an intent language, by the way. So there are some technicalities to this. I think it was a message bill, what we call message, a message, bill, or a message intent language. And, of course, I rejected it. I think it's bad public policy to be reactionary in that way and to have punitive approaches to policy by having this type of actions. You're only sending the wrong message to our teachers. It's not their fault that their elected board, which is in this case Salt Lake City School District Board, makes decisions they're the ones making those decisions. It's not the teachers. So I don't see how this was going to help. I think it did obviously push the conversation, and they got to an agreement with Salt Lake City School District. But it's unfortunate that we have to.
Sounds like it would not help. It would be more divisive to me, frankly.
Oh, it was very divisive. It's also how demoralize a whole group of professionals and saying, look, we are, because somebody else is making decisions for you, we're going to now penalize you and not give you something that everybody else is getting. And the only difference is that you have the wrong group of elected officials making decisions for you is wrong. And the reality is, here's the situation. I mean, I live in Salt Lake City. So my kids go to Salt Lake City, participate in Salt Lake City School District. One of them is in West High School. There's no way you can do some of this unless you have a very hybrid, elaborative process. That building, it's so old. It's 150 plus years old. It's not even safe without pandemic. And here you're asking to do this. I mean, it's not only about the teachers, it's really also about the safety of the students. So I maybe in other districts, they have other type of buildings. I mean, there's so many things that come into place and to have this very safe environment, to have a hybrid model. So I mean, look, I think options are needed. Many parents are having to work. I mean, I'm working and you're working. So, but we may be able to work at home like I am right now. And not everyone has that opportunity. So I want to make sure that if we're going to be pushing this type of agenda and policy, that we give the resources. Is this going to cost? How much is it going to cost to put schools at a place where they can have a safe hybrid model for teaching in person? I don't know that we've even made that type of assessment. So Salt Lake School District was making, at that point, decisions based on being hotspots. I mean, most of the hotspots were in my district, which is part of Salt Lake City School District and Granite. So is it possible to bring a good hybrid model? I agree, and I think it's doable, but we need to make sure that we're giving resources for them to successfully and safe in a safe way put teachers and students in the same classroom.
We're talking with Luz Escamilla. She's the minority whip at the Utah State Senate. Well, what does this say about the climate, the political climate on Capitol Hill? It has been contentious for a while. We're changing governors from Governor Gary Herbert out to Lieutenant Governor Cox moving up. Who's making the decisions around this joint? Is it going to be the governor or is it the legislature? Who's running this show?
That's a good question. And it's actually a good, government 101 question. So the state legislature has the absolute power on the budget. So, we are the ones that pass not only laws, but we balance the budget. I think people forget that's probably one of the most important things we do, if not the most important thing, is we actually say how we spend your taxpayers' money.
Well, I know, but what I'm talking about is the conversation about the schools and that controversy. And, Governor Herbert claims to have been blindsided and Governor Cox was not involved.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So remember, we talk a lot about the autonomy and local control, and we love to remind that to the federal government here in Utah. But when it comes to bringing local control and allowing locals to do what they want to do, we like to put our big hand as a state legislature. So, I think the legislature contradicts many times what they're saying and what they're doing. But the reality is because of the emergency situation, because this is a pandemic, there is still, I mean, we're still running legislation on how we're going to have the relationship between the executive branch and the legislative branch. That has not been defined. I mean, we've had, as you know, there's been a lot of media coverage on that relationship between the governor and the legislature, and how far do we go into restrictions? Is it a decision made at the municipality level? Is it a state level? We're still defining that because this pandemic had put us in that position with a 10-month pandemic situation. So the same with local school districts. So to answer your question, you're going to see more a pushback. I think you're going to see more of the legislature. We're coming to a session, so I think we're a part-time legislature, but when we're in session, we're full-time, more than full-time. So you're going to see probably more heavy-handed, I think, hands on deck of the legislature in the next couple of months that you have seen in the last couple of months. And I think it's just the nature of that balance.
How do you do it as Democrats? Do you just have to kiss up? And what I mean, I guess, is, to the Republicans and the leadership. And what I mean is you can be contrite, apologetic. But like in any relationship, it's hard to apologize or be contrite if they're going to shut you down as soon as you apologize, and it begins to look like weakness. So how do you move a progressive agenda, if you will, in a legislature that is pretty much conservative?
Yeah, I call it incrementalism, right? I mean, it is incremental steps, Bill. And I've been there for 12 years. And so 12 years that taught me to be more patient, to compromise. Absolutely. I mean, there's a sense of consensus. I can tell you in the Utah State Legislature as a Democrat, you don't get to be successful without compromising, bringing consensus, and being in incremental steps. I've seen changes happen in 12 years that if you would have told me 10 years ago this is going to happen, I would have been like, no way. But after 4 or 5 years of having the same conversation, I mean, look at medical cannabis. There's some of these issues, that of course it took the public to speak up and bring it to a vote. But it was 7 years in the making, 7 years of committee hearings, 7 years of talking. And it really got to the point where people are like, there's nothing else to argue. I mean, this is where we're moving. This is what the public wants. I would say it's going to be slow, but change happens, and we're bringing change. We've done really progressive, good public policy, which I think is the most important thing when it comes to, for example, social justice issues, police reform issues. I mean, we were one of the few states right away to pass legislation regarding the choking bill, right? So, I mean, things happen in Utah. Immigration, the same. I think you did cover a lot of that immigration work in the 2010, 2011.
Indeed, absolutely, yes. Mm-hmm.
So, I've seen it. It's possible. There are good people. They are very conservative. You're absolutely right. But demographics are also changing, and you're going to see more changes, I think, in our legislation. It should reflect the public, and it should reflect the constituents of Utah. I don't know that we're there yet, but I'm hopeful.
Let me ask the same question in a different way, if you don't mind, Luz. People seem frightened, angry, and divided. And are you hopeful that we can bridge some of these divides?
So I'll say this: there is more divisiveness now that has been in a while. I think the soon-to-be former president built a lot of that. I mean, he was poisonous. I mean, toxic. I mean, it was bad. I'm regardless of political affiliation, I just think he did so much damage to our nation in 4 years. The way he talked about people, the way he made reference, he was like a bully in the White House, right? I mean, we had a bully in the White House. And this is coming from someone that's run legislation, anti-bullying legislation. This is going to take a while for healing. Absolutely. Healing is not going to happen overnight. He gave this sense of permission and permissible actions and permissible ways of talking that has hurt not only our politics, it has hurt families and hurt communities. So I'm looking forward to those changes. It's going to take time. And I think we need to be consistent on being fair. I always tell people, you don't have to love everyone, and you don't have to be, embracing everyone. All I'm saying is let's be fair. Let's have some sense of justice for everyone. We all want the same. We all come here for the American dream. Your ancestors probably came here for the American dream. I came here for the American dream as an immigrant myself. So I think we all want the best for our community, our families. There will be healing. It will take time. but I think having a new president is definitely going to change the paradigm in the way we're talking, and I'm excited for that.
Luz Escamilla is the minority whip in the Utah State Senate. That's who we're talking to right now. You've been in politics, well, at least 12 years, right? That's how long you've been in the legislature. Has it been longer than that, where you on a school board and all this stuff?
No, just I went directly to the state Senate.
Okay. So where do you see you seem to be enjoying yourself, if I may be so bold, and what are you going to do in the next 5 or 10 years? I can't imagine you're getting out of the political life.
Well, as you can see, Bill, I'm very young.
Yes. Well, you're 22 now, I guess. I don't know. I'm 32.
25. So my husband is also a former state legislator and former mayor, and very involved in politics in Arizona. We spend a lot of time in obviously our state of Arizona, because half of our family is there. I love public policy. I mean, I really feel that, what I've done in the state legislature has been very rewarding. I have little ones. I mean, we have a large family. We have 2 tiny ones, still toddlers. So I'm busy, but it's tough to be a Democrat in Utah, and you probably, you already mentioned that it's hard to get elected in Utah. Very, very few positions where Democrats are elected. I'm hoping things will change. I did run for mayor, as you've mentioned in the introduction. And for Salt Lake City, I was so excited for the opportunity to bring a different perspective, especially.
Don't worry about that. You've got to lose. If you're going to be in politics, you've got to be prepared to lose once in a while. Everybody absolutely does. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's, so I had it was a very difficult, long journey on that mayoral race. So I'm happy that I was able to get reelected this year for the Senate, and I just love my district. I'm hoping to continue serving. I love public service, and certainly, and I also have a full-time job on the side, and I'm, as an entrepreneur, I'm in a small startup, and we're doing great things, providing jobs for Utahns. We went from 3 people in a basement to now we're 30 and growing. So I'm doing a lot of things, and I'm just hoping that there's always opportunity for service. I'm here to serve. My husband the same. We're a family that believes in public service. And I don't know, 5-10 years from now, maybe Utah will look different. Who knows? There may be a chance for a governor to be.
There we go. That's where I was going. I was going to bring it up if you didn't. So okay, maybe governor. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, governor. Why not? I mean, no, I'm just kidding.
No, you're not kidding at all. It might happen. We'll see.
We'll see. There's a lot of positions coming up, I'm sure.
Okay, Luz Escamilla, she is right now the minority whip in the Senate and vows to stay in public service and raise her family and keep a business going and on and on. And I appreciate you joining us on the podcast today. Luz Escamilla, I will call on you again when things happen. Okay. Thank you very much. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
The vaccines we use today are safe, effective, and help protect us from many dangerous diseases. But how are the COVID-19 vaccines tested and approved? Before the Food and Drug Administration or Centers for Disease Control recommend any COVID-19 vaccine for use, they have to test it for safety. First, the company creating the vaccine tests it in a lab. Then, they move on to clinical trials to test it with thousands of volunteers. These trials help us know if the vaccine is safe, which dosage works best, and how our immune system will react to it. The FDA works closely with the company during this process. They make sure there are no harmful ingredients or outside contaminants in the vaccines. The vaccine will only be approved for use after all safety concerns have been addressed. The FDA, CDC, and healthcare providers will continue to monitor the vaccine for safety once it's approved. They make sure the vaccine is working like it's supposed to, and that there aren't any harmful side effects. Though approval has moved quickly due to the pandemic, the FDA and CDC are following the same thorough process to approve safe vaccines for COVID-19.
Once again, I want to welcome to the broadcast Jared Casper. You may recognize his face. He's one of the lead attorneys at Robert J. DeBry and Associates. They've got offices, of course, original offices in Salt Lake, and they're in Sandy, and then St. George. I have been familiar with this company and used them as experts on television on a number of occasions. And Jared, I want to ask you about if I have the right kind of insurance for, life, I guess, for driving around and other stuff, because I don't know anybody, and I don't know anybody who knows anybody who has an insurance claim to file, and it's just as easy as pie. It always is in denial, and you have to fight it, and it's kind of a pain. Do I have the right kind of insurance without knowing what kind of insurance I have for driving?
Yeah, I mean, for auto insurance, there's a couple of requirements in policies that are written in the state of Utah that you have to have.
Okay.
First one is you have to have what's called personal injury protection coverage. That's essentially medical insurance for any injuries caused by an accident. And the state law is a minimum of $3,000. As you can imagine, Bill,
That's not much.
not very often is $3,000 sufficient
No.
to cover you for injuries from an accident.
No.
Because if you go by ambulance to the hospital, you're going to blow through that really fast.
That's a heck of a taxi ride, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
Exactly. You're also going to have, by law, you have to have what's called underinsured and uninsured motorist coverage. That is coverage that's going to apply if the person who caused the accident doesn't have enough insurance to compensate you fully for your injuries. The minimum requirements in the state of Utah for liability insurance that the other person has to have is $25,000 per person per accident, and then $65,000 total per accident. And as you can imagine, depending on the nature of the injuries, it's far too often that someone has $25,000 insurance coverage that's not sufficient to fully compensate someone they may have injured in an accident.
Oh, that's removing a splinter anymore, $25,000. So do I have personal liability for that?
Well, I mean, you what could end up happening is one, if they don't have sufficient insurance coverage, then you could be potentially out the money that you would be normally be entitled to recover because of your injuries. That's where the underinsured motorist coverage comes in.
Okay.
It sort of makes up the difference on your injury claims. But potentially, and far too often we've had examples with this in our firm where someone gets injured and the insurance coverage is not enough, both the person who caused the accident and their own, and so they're kind of left holding the bag a little bit, at least as far as getting their full compensation.
Okay, I guess I can find out about that somewhere. I hate to trust the fox with the hen house. I guess I can go to my insurance agent and find out. And I found individuals, frankly, to be rather honest. It's the companies and their policies that sometimes aren't as straightforward, maybe. If I do injure myself and I go to Robert J. DeBryan Associates, am I likely to get, after you take out your fees, and your fees include all of the substantial expenses that go into litigation, but if I go to Robert J. DeBryan, am I likely to get more money than if I didn't go to an attorney to file a claim against an insurance company?
I believe you will, Bill. And that's based on a couple of things. There was a study done once, and forgive me, I don't have the citation in front of me, but I think it talks about a significant percentage amount of more recovery you get when you have an attorney involved.
I think it's 20 or 30%. Actually, I think it's 20 or 30%.
Right.
I don't have it in front of me either. Go ahead.
And then secondary to that is, based on my experience in formerly working for insurance companies and seeing, where the initial offers were on a case to where the cases were settled for, it's usually substantially more that the case settles for once you have an attorney. And by that, I mean, it's substantially more enough that when you pay the attorney's fees, you're still going to come out with more money to you when the case is resolved.
You know what? Something must be going well for you, because I hear complaints about everything. All kinds of businesses and industries, and I don't hear anything about you. And you take in these cases, you collect your fees. People worry about the egregious fees, supposedly, that a lawyer is going to charge. But I do think that people wind up getting more money. What if they don't? What if after litigation this comes up underwater for a client?
Well, one of the things we do, Bill, is we always will work with our clients on what fees have to be paid. If at the end of the day, our fees are going to be more than what they get, and we're going to work with them to make sure that at the end of a case, they're not owing anyone any money.
Okay.
Not owing me, not owing an insurance company, or not owing a medical bill or anything like that. So we're going to do everything we can to help make sure that there's that balance there, so they're not left upside down at the end of a case.
Okay, so it explains not only if you don't get of a settlement and win. But if the settlement is below what expenses are, it's still not going to cost the client anything.
Right. They're not going to owe me or anyone else any money at the end of a case, because we're going to work our hardest to make sure that everyone who's owed money for paying the medical bills from the accident are paid, and the attorney's fees get paid, and the client has money in their pocket at the end of the case.
You know what? I'm going to make you into my law professor at law school, because I have a lot more to ask you, Jared. Jared Casper, one of the lead attorneys with Robert J. DeBryan Associates for personal injury accidents, medical malpractice, dog bites, slip and fall, all kinds of things that you do. But I need to have you back, because I have to ask some more questions, especially about permanent or semi-permanent injuries, okay?
Okay.
All right. We'll talk soon. Thanks for coming back. Jared Casper, one of the lead attorneys with Robert J. and DeBryan Associates. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Bill.
But aside from Mitt Romney, who's shown moments of true courage, our delegation simply ran toward power.
Jim DeBackus, former state senator, ex-chairman of the state Democratic Party, speaking out about the face of power politics in the United States and how it's fueling division across the country, and of course, right here in Utah. Joining me now on the podcast is Jim DeBackus. He's a Democrat, former state senator, and former chair of the Utah Democratic Party.
Bill, Jim. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Yes, it is. You have your own podcast too.
Yeah,
right?
I have my own. No, I don't have a podcast, but I have a newsletter. So if you go to Jim DeBackus Citizen, you can sign up on Facebook.
Okay. Well, then you'll be on this podcast for a while. I like to talk to you because I like to get your take on everything. And what's wrong with me today, because it's all about me, is why are we so angry? We have been angry here for 5 or 10 years or something, ever since maybe Sarah Palin or Barack Obama. But the Democrats are mad at Democrats, the Republicans are mad at Republicans, and of course Republicans and Democrats are mad at each other, and things really aren't that bad. This is not King George, where they're taking a bunch of taxes out of the colonies, and we decide we have to fight a revolutionary war in order to keep our money where it is. That's something to be pissed about. But why are we so angry now?
Well, I think we go back to our basic genetic roots of tribalism, and we're there, and our leaders and leadership can actually take those tribal instincts that we have, our race, our religion, our ethnicity, and they can either help bridge those divides, or they can exacerbate those divides for their own personal political preferences. And you know what? Democrats have done it over the years. Republicans have done it over the years. It wins a lot through history. But with the election of Donald Trump, we took that to a new level. I mean, that we haven't seen since the Civil War, where our leaders have, I don't think Donald Trump made up those divides, but he's been tremendous at exploiting them for his own personal gain.
Because even today, a couple of days before Christmas, he is saying that he is the winner of the election, and that's out in a tweet this morning, which is just silly.
Okay, so look, there have always been people like Donald Trump. There have been buffoonish leaders throughout history. I mean, from the first Assyrian town and village in the Middle East, we've always had these people that come and declare themselves the king or the boss or whatever. And what our founding fathers did as the miracle of America, they kept power so divided up that it would be very difficult for one person to grab all the power. And so what bothers me about what's happened to America is not that Donald Trump came along, but that 70 million Americans, knowing Donald Trump, looking at his track record, understanding his penchant for complete power,
And not always telling the truth.
And never telling the truth, kind of. Recognizing all that, still that base demand for tribalism overcame this long 200 and almost 50-year history of the United States. That's what Americans ought to be concerned about, not Donald Trump, but about the fact that Utah voted for him. Utah believes in his values, that every single Republican in the state, except Mitt Romney, endorsed him. You know, the legislature endorsed him. Recognizing that what he is and what he stood for, that's where the future of democracy is going to have serious problems, not just in Utah, but in America.
Speaking of freedom in America, I don't know, a month and a half ago or so, Senator Mike Lee, Republican, said that we're not really a democracy, or that a democracy is not good. And I believe his reasoning was that you can't have a majority of people who don't have any money voting, for example, to take the money away from the people who do have the money, or the majority white people get to suppress the minority. I guess that's what he was talking about. But it shocked me when I found out we're not a democracy.
So the right wing has been saying this for many, many years. That is, that America is not a democracy. And here's what they mean, I think. And there's some constitutional basis to what they're saying. They're saying that Americans do not vote for a presidential candidate. They vote for electors, and those electors vote for a presidential candidate. And it was in the kind of slavery wisdom of our founding fathers who made some serious mistakes. I don't know where the divine inspiration went when they decided that African-American people were only counted as 3/5 and that they could be property. But they also had an inherent skepticism people could make the decision. So that meant that they wanted, people could have a plebiscite. They could go out and vote if they wanted to, but they don't even need to vote. The legislature in Utah could actually cancel the vote and among themselves decide who would get our electors, and that would be perfectly fine according to the Constitution. And I think Mike Lee was pointing that out. But more important than that, he was pointing that out as a good idea. That's the way we ought to go. It is only holy tradition and some state laws, which can be overcome just like that, that force the vote of the people to equal the electors. So from a technical legal point of view, Mike Lee's probably right that we are not a democracy. But
maybe we need some constitutional changes, because we've got a president now who's pardoning criminals and friends like crazy, as well as what you're talking about. And it's a very difficult thing to amend the Constitution, but it was written so that it could be amended. So maybe some of these traditions need to be codified into law. What do you think?
Yeah, of course. And it gets to the soul of people when they are confronted with this kind of power, that where they go. I mean, you had Congressman Stewart who called Donald Trump our Mussolini, and Mike Lee who demanded that Donald Trump pull himself out of the presidential race. But when they got proximity to power, when it was right there, when Chris Stewart, who is bored being a congressman, just look at him, just listen to him. But when he wanted to be Secretary of the Army, and then he wanted to be Secretary of the Air Force, and then he wanted a job as the CIA director, he cushioned, he kind of squeezed himself into Donald Trump's good graces by staying with him no matter what he said. And Mike Lee, who also is bored with being a senator and really sees his divine mission as being on the Supreme Court and recognizing that the guy who could get him there was Donald Trump, he dropped all pretense of a man who should resign and a man that doesn't have any morality and all the other things that he said on video and cuddled up to power. That's what power does. So you need to judge people not by how they give a speech or they don't, but watch what happens when they get a proximity to power. And our Utah delegation, aside from, of course, Ben McAdams, but aside from Mitt Romney, who's shown moments of true courage, our delegation simply ran toward power. It's been a horrendous display of raw, naked power, and the fragility.
I mean,
the fragility of our democracy.
I was going to say, Jim, it makes sense because it's something I can never. I have a hard time figuring it out. I thought people just wanted to burn stuff down, period, rather than negotiate. But it's just being drawn toward power and where you'll go, regardless of the consequences of getting that power. That's an interesting point.
And
it really
it's
is.
Also what's happened as a result of this. The only way Donald Trump could keep his grip on power was to destroy our institutions, and systematically, from the FBI and law enforcement to the courts to the news media, he has been willing to sacrifice these institutions, which really are the bedrock foundation of our entire successful system of people governing for 250 years, almost 250 years. He was willing to sacrifice that for his own selfish edification. And why more than 50% of the Utah voters want to continue that, I just don't understand.
All right, let me get away from the philosophy. And speaking of newsletters, your newsletter, let's talk about teachers in Salt Lake being denied a bonus at first, anyway, being denied a bonus because they were not having students in class, and that's the way the legislature wanted it. Now, the back of your head blew off on that as best I can tell.
Look, we have a broad problem here, in that the leadership of the legislature has nothing but contempt for urban areas. They have no respect for Salt Lake City, for Utah legislators, for Salt Lake County. They take.
Isn't that the same everywhere? I mean, the urban areas tend to be more liberal and more democratic. Isn't that the same everywhere?
Not like this. There are 17 positions of leadership in the legislature. You as you look at the House and Senate leadership and the governor and the lieutenant governor, do you realize not one of them is from Salt Lake County, not Salt Lake City? Not one of them is from Salt Lake County. I mean, St. Pete County has representation, and Weber County has, Davis County has 5 representatives. Utah County has 4. It's all over the place, but they have such disrespect, and it's more than disrespect. It's downright contempt for the people, particularly of Salt Lake City, but of Salt Lake County. It's astonishing that a third of the citizens of the state don't have one representative in leadership. And by the way, leadership in the legislature is everything. Those people control everything. And they don't even have a Republican in there. I mean, it's pathetic. And I'm talking about the majority leadership here. It goes to show. So whether you're talking about taking a chunk of Salt Lake City, basically annexing it, turning it over to the Chamber of Commerce so they can put a polluting coal port, or whether you're talking about saying every teacher in Utah will get a bonus except those in Salt Lake City until the school board does exactly what we want it to do. And I could go down time after time, list after list. There's a great contempt for suburban and particularly rural legislators who rule the day. And they just are, I keep saying the word contempt, but occasionally.
No, I know, but was there a way of telling Cox who's the boss of the legislature, telling Cox who's the boss?
Well, look, the boss is the boss only because he listened to those people. I mean, Greg Hughes was thought to have gonna get the power from his strength in get the governorship from his strength in rural Utah. Cox went out there, worked hard, and convinced rural Utah that he was their man, and he owes them. They got him that Republican nomination, and that, of course, is what gets you the governorship. We need not even have a November election, frankly. And so consequently, you have, I don't see Cox, he's going to put a more smiley face on it. And I think he's got a better temperament than Herbert and his people. But when push comes to shove, like on the teacher thing, for example, Cox received at least $75,000 from the National Education Association. He cozied up to education and to the UEA. So
and Salt Lake,
and in Salt Lake, but the whole UEA. I mean, they were among his core supporters. And when push came to shove, when they were pulling this crap about Salt Lake School District must do this or they're not going to get the teacher's bonus, Cox was silent. And then after the school district, which had no choice really, after they collapsed to the leadership of the legislature, then Cox came out and said, wow, that's just the way we ought to do things. It was compromise. It was negotiation. It was such a good thing. Bullshit. You know what it was? It was coercion. It was the legislature coming in and saying, either you do what we want or else your teachers are not going to get the bonus. That's not negotiation. That's not compromise, except in the Utah way.
Okay, we're talking to Jim DeBacchus, former Utah State Democratic Party leader, and I want to ask you one more thing, and then I'll let you go because I sure appreciate your time. Something that has been bothering me is I have never heard of talk of martial law. Do we in Utah, and this comes from allegedly the president, but it certainly comes from General Flynn, who has been pardoned, convicted and now pardoned. But, we have our cowboy caucus and we have our conservatives. Do we in Utah listen to such stuff as martial law, and obviously in an attempt to in this particular case, it would be an attempt to recount the votes or seize the voting machines or whatever it might be. But are we that right wing, or are we looking at that funny too here?
We heard nothing. What? Nothing. Not a peep. There was no press releases. There was no outrage other than Mitt Romney. I mean, that's what to me is the most dangerous. Chris Stewart did not demean or object or go crazy about the possible implementation of martial law in order to get an election result, to steal an election result from the president. That is an outrage. And frankly, where are the Utah Democrats? The last election, the Democrats elected a conservative to head the party. And the truth is that the way the Democrats think now, the way they're going to get success is to keep their mouths quiet, to cozy up to Republicans, and then suddenly they're going to get more votes. And I question whether that's going to happen or not. So not only was there silence about martial law by the Republicans, but too many Democrats just are keeping their mouth shut. It's like the frog in the water, and we all better speak out.
Well, that's right. Yeah, that's right. And all right, Jim DeBacchus, what are you going to do in the future? Before we say goodbye, what are you going to do in the future? Are you going to just advise us, which I very much appreciate you advising me and our audience, but what are you going to do?
It's not politics. I did not enjoy being in the legislature. It was not a good experience. I mean, to stand there knowing you're right and the rest of the body is wrong, and know that the decision has already been made in a closed caucus, and then you're coming out and giving a speech, and it doesn't matter what you say on Medicaid expansion, which we didn't take for 5 years and lost a more than $2 billion and on a whole bunch of issues. It's too frustrating for me. I'm going to leave that to older people. But I would say to Democrats, open your damn mouths, at least let the people know this is happening.
All right, Jim DeBackus, former Democratic State Chair, thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to call on you again when anything happens.
Anytime. Thanks, Bill.
Let me welcome to the podcast once again Adam Sessions. He's the owner of One Wire Communications. These are the guys who set up what I like to call communication systems in your home so that you don't need an office. All the employees are hooked up together in this COVID thing. That is an increasing business opportunity for you, I guess, as more and more people are starting to work from home. And you've got me all hooked up at my home as well. But I want to talk to you today about what the year 2020 was like for you and for your customers. And, it seems dismal, kind of a dismal time to me. And what do you see in the forecast? Just personal opinion.
Wow. What has it been like for us? It has been probably one of the most challenging, one of the most challenging experiences I think that we could have even imagined in a 15-year time period that we've been around. Just the fact that everybody went home and existed in their own particular silo, with dogs running through the background and kids and all the craziness that comes from working at home, where it seemed to bother everybody in the beginning if they were on a phone call, asking everybody to be quiet. And now it's not really that big a deal anymore. Everybody and the world, frankly, is used to it.
You're hooking everybody up. I mean, that's your job, is to hook all the businesses up. And you say they needed to get used to it? Are they happy about working at home, people? I know from my standpoint, my employees, we miss seeing each other's faces, actual three-dimensional faces. What are you finding? What are you thinking?
Well, we touch base with all of our employees, and I'd say it's almost been a resounding benefit that they're able to essentially take that piece of the day, still function highly in their job, but still be that much more closely connected to the family unit. Because even though you and I and most folks are still working from home, it's affecting kids at school, and sometimes they're in school and sometimes they're not. So it's a huge benefit to be able to function at a high level and not have to be in a physical office. That's been a benefit.
Like you say, everybody's using video now, like us now.
Absolutely. Video has been a huge tool for us. That's another thing that's been different. People are coming to us for help in figuring out ways to communicate with their customers, because they can't take them to lunch, they can't go to dinner, they can't go sit in their office and take them gifts or just sit in front of them. So they're using the video platform that we have to effectively run. Some are doing podcasts like you are. Some are doing webinars where they're filming sort of pre-produced 2 to 3 minute sessions that then they post on their website or their YouTube channel, or they send out to people. They call them, I think they call them video logs. And luckily we've got a tool that lends itself incredibly well to that world and what they want to do.
Okay, so what's happening in the future then? 2021. I mean, we got to get probably summertime in 2021 before the vaccine supposedly gets here and on. But 2021 for you in business.
So I would suspect, as we've kind of talked a little bit about before, I would suspect that people are going to be figuring out ways to get back to the office. Probably not in a full-time capacity, but certainly in some type of hybrid environment where, a few days at home, a few days in the office. Right. I mean, everybody's industry sort of dictates whether that's applicable or not. And there are just some industries, you don't really have that flexibility. You're either open or closed.
You're selling hot dogs and chicken, because I know at least the chicken place that is a client of yours. They got to show up for work, and people have to show up to eat. But a guy like me who's running basically an endorsement company as well as a journalistic company, except for the fact that we miss each other's faces, I can pretty much run that from home more efficiently, I think.
Yeah. Well, the other avenue is that, 2021 will probably bring a greater adoption, whereas maybe we were spending some time trying to educate folks and show them how to use the tools. I think the tools are pretty ubiquitous at this point. Really, it's going to be more about selecting a group that you feel comfortable with, that communicates well with you, can take care of the needs of your business and get you hooked up in a hurry. I really think that's what's going to make a difference too.
I don't want to brag about you all day, but the best part about you, I know you're into the technology a lot, and I'm not. I'm a user. And what I really like as a user and not as a techno guy is the fact that your service is so great. If we have a problem of any kind, we simply call you up. Somebody answers the phone, and they take care of us by tapping on their keyboard instantly, and I love it. And I don't know many companies you can get that from. But well, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll talk to you on the other side. Adam Sessions with One Wire Communications. You can find him by Googling One Wire, and there's a phone number, but you want to give a phone number.
Sure. 801-214-9000.
All right. But mostly, the easiest way is One Wire Communications. Cheers, my friend. Talk to you on the other side.
Patriotism. There's a word thrown around a lot. It inspires passionate debate and is worn like a badge of honor, and with good reason, because it means love and devotion for one's country. Love. For a word designed to unite, it can also be pretty divisive. You see, there's more to patriotism than flag sequin onesies and rodeos and quadruple cheeseburgers. Patriotism is love for a country, not just pride in it. But what really makes up this country of ours? What is it we love? It's more than just a huge rock full of animals like cougars and eagles, right? It's the people. Do me a favor. Close your eyes for a second. I want to try something out. Picture the average U.S. citizen. Think about it. How old are they? What's their hair like? How much can they bench? You got one? Okay. So chances are, the person you're picturing right now looks a little different to the real average American. There are 319 million U.S. citizens. 51% are female. So first off, the average American is a woman. Cool, huh? Is that what you pictured? 54 million are Latino, 40 million senior citizens, 27 million are disabled, 18 million are Asian. That's more people in the U.S. than play football and baseball combined. 9 million are lesbian, gay, bi, transgender, more than the entire amount of people that live in the state of Virginia. Around 10 million are redhead, 5.1 million play ultimate frisbee, and 3.5 million are Muslim. Triple the number of people currently serving in the United States military. Almost half the country belongs to minority groups. People who are lesbian, African American, and bi, and transgender, and Native American, and proud of it. We know that labels don't devalue us, they help define us, keeping us dialed into our cultures and our beliefs and who we are as Americans. After all, what's more American than freedom to celebrate the things that make us, us? I mean, it's stitched into the stars and stripes of this country, from the Constitution to Gettysburg, to our motto, E pluribus unum, from many, one. It's even in our country's name, the United States. This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love. Love beyond age, disability, sexuality, race, religion, and any other labels. Because the second any of us judge people based on those labels, we're not really being patriotic, are we? So let's try this one more time. Close your eyes. Picture the average Joe or Joan or Juan or Jean-Luc. The real people who make America, America. And this year, whenever you feel the urge to don those star-spangled shorts, set off fireworks the size of my biceps to show love for our country, remember that to love America is to love all Americans. Because love has no labels.
Now let's welcome to the program Chad Stokes. We've seen him before. He's a co-owner at ES Solar, the people that put solar energy on top of my home. And Chad, I want to talk to you about some of the goods and the bads, not just about solar, but take a look back at 2020. Tell me where we've been and what kind of a year it's been for those of you you know, and then take a look forward as to what you think is going to happen in the coming year.
Absolutely. So, Bill, I have to say it's been an interesting year. Last year, 2020 was definitely an interesting year. You know, we were hit with COVID in March, mid-March, and thankfully, you know, we were considered and classified as an essential business, and we're allowed to continue to work and get out and meet with families. But we experienced some hardships with families that we did work with, and you know, that was then shortly after, you know, we had the earthquake and the windstorms and power outages, and it really was a strange year with a lot of events that I know negatively impacted families. Jobs were lost. People
likes 2020? It was a horrible year.
It was.
Look forward to what's going on. Yeah, what's going on in 2020? I know your company did well, but look forward to 2021.
Yeah. So you know, we anticipate 100% growth. We were fortunate enough to help and blessed to help about 1,500 families in our great state of Utah go solar and own their own power in 2020. And, you know, we anticipate about 2,500 to 3,000 families that we'll be able to help this year. Our product offering has never been better. And this new equipment, this new technology that is going to give them self-reliance and peace of mind. Honestly, it's what families
batteries.
For
Battery. We could never afford batteries before, but now they've come down in price and they've increased in technology, right?
Absolutely, all of it. They're less expensive. They are smaller. They're more efficient. There is technology that talks to the battery and the solar panel as well as Rocky Mountain. So yeah, it's even though it's been a wild 2020, it's like this perfect storm has come together to really make what I feel is going to be an incredible 2021 for many customers and families we're going to be able to meet with and help out.
Did you have to help out a few people who are already your customers from 2020 who might have been out of a job? Did you have to help out a few people like that?
We have, and we've done some things with military. We donated 2 systems completely free to 2 military families that had loved ones lost. So we were able to do that. And you know, families that were without jobs or you know, lesser income than they were used to, you know, we help those families through some of our internal programs that we have to make solar make sense for them. So we do what we can where we can. Absolutely. I would love to believe that, you know, we're one of those businesses in our community that you know, put our customers first and do right by them always. And
do right by me.
And in doing so,
you listen, you guys monitor my solar. I don't even know if something's a little less than normal. And you guys find it back there at the factory. And a guy from ES Solar shows up and knocks on the door and says, I got to check your solar system. I love that customer service. I really do.
Well, we work hard to provide that for sure.
Yeah, essolar.com. And what's your email?
You can reach me at chad@essolar.net, or you can call into the office 801-614-0606. And as you said, Bill, essolar.com is our website.
Yep. It's .com for the website and .net for the email.
That's correct.
Couldn't you fix that for all of us old people who can't keep it straight?
You know what? Maybe Brandon could help us there. I know the man.
Brandon works for me, by the way. Yeah.
I was going to say, I know he works for you, and he's the man behind the curtain. I probably should be reaching out to him. He's an incredible man and does a tremendous job, I know, for you. So
yeah, all right.
That'll be my next call.
All right, Chad. Happy New Year.
Thank you so much. Happy New Year to you too, and all the wonderful families in Utah.
All right, bye-bye.
Take care.
Some artists work in oil or paint, some work in clay. Still others find themselves working in mediums. Well, I had never imagined, for one, like Oreo cookies. Seriously, Oreo cookies. And look what our Daisy Blake found out when we sent her out to find out.
I'm fascinated by how you're teaching at BYU. You're doing little tiny pictures. Now, I mean, were you just staring at an Oreo one day and thinking about, I mean, how did you get the idea to do
like
Oreo
you twist
art?
it off and say, oh, what can we make out of that?
Yeah.
No, it was, I had an art friend of mine on Facebook. She sent me an image of an Oreo that had been sculpted. And this was like last March, I think. And she said, I think you could do this. I took a look at it and I thought, you know what? I think she's probably right. I think, because I like that little detail stuff. I used to do medical illustrations for textbooks and for college level textbooks. And that sort of detail intrigues me. And it's a nice relief. I can kind of get away from the world and just focus on that. And so I tried one. And it turned out pretty good, and so I thought I'd keep doing it. So I've been trying to do maybe 2 a week. No, yeah. So they've been fun.
What was your first one?
I'm sorry?
What was your first one that you did?
My first one was of profile of the LDS prophet Joseph Smith. And then one of my earlier ones, right after that, I've got them all here in front of me. I did this little Christus for Easter. So that was an early one as well. Yeah, and they've been really fun. And you maybe you saw the one I posted today. I don't know, but
I sure did. Come let us adore him.
Yay. That was my wife's title. That was a clever title. I thought, oh, yeah, that's perfect. So
that's clever.
Yeah, that was fun.
What's the process?
That one's right here.
That's the nativity. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
So how do you do it? Are you scraping with wire or like what's the process?
I have a table knife. I twist the Oreo off and I use the knife to scrape all the icing off.
Yeah.
I scrape the icing off first and I make a little pile of icing. And I get as many different Oreo flavors that have different colors. Like I have a nice dark chocolate and a chocolate. And they'll have a lot of different ones. They've got a nice red one out for Christmas. And those work really well, and I can mix. Oh, and the mint is great for green.
Yeah.
This was my first one I did with the mint. Was the Hulk.
Oh, I didn't see that one. That one's cool.
Yeah. But then there's some colors I want to have that they just don't quite have with the Oreos. So I'll mix the different colors, and sometimes I'll add a little drop of food coloring. To nuance and get the colors I want. This had a nice orange. This is my Trumpkin.
Oh, look at him.
And some of the colors, you think, okay, I can't really get that orange. So I mixed a yellow and a red to get that. But yeah. They've been a lot of fun. Yeah. So I have a table knife. I'll scrape, make the little piles, and then I use a toothpick. And I use a needle for the really, if I have to really finesse and get in there, like on the nativity to make the little eyes or to define a shape. I use a needle. And then I use a paintbrush, a little tiny paintbrush to push it around.
Then I would guess doing like working on that scale and with such detail, it probably like blocks some of the 2020 noise out, doesn't it? Because you have to just focus and be really precise.
Yeah, like I said early on, it's been a fun thing that you can I just sit down, okay, start to finish, boom, let's go. And for the most part, I'm able to do that. And then whatever, I listen to TV off on the side or something, but it really is a nice way to, everything else goes. It's probably like a lot of people with hobbies. That's probably why they pick them up or something. It gives you a nice little release. But creatively, it's been fun too. I'll just sit throughout the day, come up with ideas, and I'll take my little sketchbook and draw stuff in there. I've probably got another 50 to 80 right now in my head that after I get through the holidays, I want to do a lot of tribute pieces to musicians that that I've really enjoyed. I did one, the Beatles, and then the Robert Plant. We lost Eddie Van Halen this year. I'd like to do one of him, Tom Petty, Neil Peart. There's a number of just musicians alone. It could be endless. And then I get a lot of requests, people saying, hey, can you do the Three Stooges? Hey, can you do Elvis? Hey, how about all the characters from Little Nemo or whatever? I mean, it's endless. There's all kinds of things we can do, right?
It's kind of endless, isn't it? I wonder if there'll be a point where you're just like, I wonder if there'll be a point where you're just like, okay, I'm done. I want to move on to something else. Or it's gonna go for a while, I think, right?
Yeah, they're a real joy to do. And I have one here, like this little guy. He's getting away. He's crawling off the cookie.
Oh, look at that frog.
But you see, if I turn it, you can see it still has some depth to it.
Yeah.
Not the real depth, but I try and build that icing, that cream filling up, so it at least gives the impression that he's got some depth to him. Yeah.
Have you heard from Oreo the company about them?
No, can you make that happen? No, I've been, I'll do the little tag, I tag them every now and again. My son says, hey, just keep tagging them. They'll, something might happen eventually. So,
I mean, talk about an advertising campaign for them. It'd be brilliant, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun, wouldn't it? I'm sure they'd have a whole creative team behind them and saying, okay, here's our theme. We'll go for this,
Yeah.
And that'd be fun. I'd be open to that. So who knows? Until then, I'll keep doing the things that I like to do because I find joy in them and it's fun to share. And I like seeing people's reactions to them.
And you're giving joy to people as well in what has kind of been a bit of a rough year, hasn't it?
Yeah, and it's been nice to, push away from some of what's going on with the COVID and all the politics stuff. I've had my fun with the Trumpkin and all these different ones. This Frankenschumer. For Halloween, I was just doing all of these different kind of politicians just to poke fun at them. I mean, why not? So. And I've got the Joe Biden. He's a little.
Oh, I didn't see that one. That is great.
Joe Biden. So I kind of make fun of.
And then you didn't do a great Mitch McConnell one as well.
Yeah, I do have him here, and then I've got this is my Bella Pelosi.
Oh, I didn't see that one either.
Yeah, that's kind of spooky.
So good.
I figure if I'm poking fun at both sides equally, I think I'm probably okay, but. Yeah, and then I try and do some.
To laugh at yourself.
I think so, and then I try and do some things that push the envelope a little bit, like taking it off the cookie. So.
Oh, I love that one.
The little fish, and I have some magic that I use to get the fin to come off, and so I may do some more fish, beta fish or whatever. I've got so many ideas in my head, and as long as my wife allows it, she thinks it's fun to let me go after it. So I'll keep at it.
I love it. Well,
Thank
we may
you,
have to interview you again in like 6 months' time to see your latest batch of Oreos.
Yeah, I've had somebody. Okay. Now you've done the nativity. Can you do the Colosseum? Can you do? They want all these. I don't think so. I'll leave that to you. That's a whole
other thing. You're going to end up doing the Eiffel Tower and London Bridge.
Could you imagine that? Yeah, that's too intense. I posted that I brushed up against insanity on this nativity because that one was tough. But I had to think about that one for a couple of weeks because I didn't want to even start it if I didn't think that I could maybe see it through. So.
Yeah, draw the line at the Colosseum, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, I won't be doing that one. That's for sure.
Well, I so appreciate you talking to me. It's completely fascinating.
Thank you. You're very kind, Daisy. Thank you very much.
And that will do it for episode 14 of the Bill Gephardt Show. Remember to support the local music scene, and please support the sponsors of this program. They are supporters of local journalism. They are the ones that make this all possible. See you next time.